We are breaking down everything you need to know going into your fantasy football drafts, whether that's your work draft, whether that's your school, whether that's your old buddies that you've been playing with forever and you keep losing. Well, you know what? We're going to help you win your draft. And we already have a couple of our clips and videos up on our YouTube channel. So if you have not gone to check those out, go to ActionLab Sports on YouTube, and you can check those out. And make sure that you guys have everything you need going into your drafts and you are prepared, because that's what you don't ever want to go cold into your NFL fantasy football draft. We will be doing a draft and having some draft leagues on our show, so make sure you guys, if you guys want in, we'll start putting out information on that coming up here in the next couple weeks. If not, a little give or take in a couple weeks, we'll see. But we are talking tonight the cream of the crop, the best of the best guys that you need to target on your fantasy team. And again, so let's just clarify this, what it means. It means these are guys that you reach for. These are guys that you got, are staples that if you can get them, if they drop to you, you're not taking anybody else. And these are going to be getting you over the hump. Gibby, you guys are awesome and your advice is legit. Thank you, Gibby. Appreciate that. Hey, spread the word. Let's get more people in here. We got to get more people all the info. But these are your aces. These are your starting pitchers that are opening day starting pitchers for your team, except we're talking football this time. So, Scotty, obviously none of the names we talk about here, there's going to be some obvious ones, and we're going to just talk about how good they are and why you would take them. But I'll kick this off. And this isn't going to be a surprise, Scotty.
Yeah. Well, I know where we're heading.
Take Justin Jefferson. Just draft him. Here's the thing. For you guys who have the number 1 and number 2 picks, I get the intrigue. There's not a lot of running backs in the NFL that are going to be very prolific. So it's like, oh, I got to take my Christian McCaffrey. I got to take that top running back with my first couple picks. And we talked about this a little bit last time where, running backs in the top 12 are a 50-50 proposition that they're going to finish in the top 12 by the end of the season, at least according to last year. Whereas top 7 of your top 8 receivers finish in the top 8. So you know what you're getting. In this top spot, Justin Jefferson, if you have the number 1 or number 2 pick, I wouldn't argue taking him there. He's been the number 1 receiver in every facet in fantasy football over the last year, 3 years almost, in some categories. 7 different games last year with 30 plus PPR points. In his first 3 seasons, most catches and receiving yards through the first 3 seasons ever, and over 600 plus yards ahead of the next guy in that span, or in like the first 3 years of their careers. Like, he's just a freaking monster. He's not he's on a historic 3-year run in his first 3 years of being in the NFL, and it's only getting better. He's the most prolific wide receiver here, and if I got the 1 or 2 pick, it's really hard for me to pass on Justin Jefferson, Scotty.
Yeah. He's been the top fantasy wide receiver. Well, he was last year. He was number 2 the year prior, and his 2 years in the league, he's dominated. Or 3 years. Sorry, I was about to talk about Jamar Chase as an option. I think Jamar Chase is 1B there.
Yeah. Jamar Chase kind of in the same category in that top 2 picks.
In that same category. His targets went down, but his production was still really good last year. He's probably more likely to get. He's probably going to score a little more. He had 13 touchdowns in his rookie year, 9 last year. Justin Jefferson, as far as TDs go, has never eclipsed 10 in a season. So you might have a little more upside TD wise with Jamar Chase, with a little bit more of a big play potential. Justin Jefferson's a monster, so that's maybe the other guy that could compete there. Chris, running back position, I was made fun of last year for Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey's 1 overall, but like a guy that I don't know why he's like lasting till the second round, as if that's way deep, but like a running back that's going in the second round that I can't fathom why is Tony Pollard.
Oh,
Everything
you
about
know,
Tony Pollard screams that dude is gonna. That it would not surprise me at all if he leads running backs in yards from scrimmage this year.
yeah,
Not at all. I mean, all you've heard about in the offseason is how now you have Mike McCarthy taking over play calling. He wants to run the ball. That you don't have Zeke there anymore. You have Tony Pollard as the featured back. He's going to get a ton of touches. It was incredibly prolific with his touches last season, averaging 5.2 yards per carry, which historically over 5 yards per carry would be like third all time. So he's prolific when he gets touches. He's going to only get more touches this year. I think Tony Pollard could end up being it wouldn't shock me at all. Like I literally put it at like a 30% chance that Tony Pollard is RB1 in fantasy this year.
I mean, Tony Pollard, he's like that. That's gonna lead into my next running back and next option here in this category of must draft. But he's that guy that's just that boring guy that I keep talking about. Take the boring guy. There's nothing really like that screams, oh, Tony Pollard. Like, you know, it's you don't really get excited when you get, you know, you look at your roster and Tony Pollard. I mean, even though he's highly rated in a lot of circles here on the fantasy side, like I just think of the Dallas Cowboys as like a dual head monster with Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, and they kind of like the goal line carry type thing kind of scares me off a little bit. But like that doesn't take away the fact that he's going to get a lot of yardage and a lot of fantasy points racked up over the course of the season. He was a guy that I almost did a little thing on as well. I think he's going to be very, very good this year. Before I get into my next option here, one of my aces in the hole, Medic Gibby. Curious, forgive me if you guys talked about this earlier and missed it. What is your take on the running back money issue that come up? So we're Scotty's on kind of like both sides from what we talked about last stream. I'm more on the owner side of like not if I'm leaning on one side of the fence over the other, I'm like, you gotta understand the landscape. You gotta, if you're a running back, you gotta identify the fact that, I mean, and you saw Saquon do this, G Girl, right? Saquon realized his agent was like, dude, yeah, like the value's not there, man. You just can't do it. And he ended up coming back for that 1 year deal, at which he could still get franchised next year. But I just think that, you know, if you're looking at it from a owner standpoint, you're saying, why would I pay a ton of money to a position that doesn't carry you to a Super Bowl? Like, it's hard for me to. Look at the last teams that won a Super Bowl, and how many of them had a workhorse single running back that have carried them over and over throughout the course of a season. Like it's running back by committee. You're not paying guys. So for me, I'm more on the owner's side than I am, and like the landscape of things more so than like the whole. The running backs need to like understand that, but I value the fact that they are like they get injured and you know they have they have a tough job and like there are productive running backs out there that should earn that money. Yeah, I totally think there are certain running backs that should get paid, but like you gotta understand the landscape, read the room. But yeah, that's just kind of what we were talking about in a nutshell previously. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean. No, I think I agree with you. I'm on the if I'm a GM, I'm not paying big money. I've said that for years. I'm not paying big money at the running back position. It just doesn't pan out well for you. They have a short shelf life. The moment you give them that long-term deal, you're probably going to regret it sooner rather than later. My only point is like I get it from the running backs, these guys' perspective. Like it's frustrating as hell. You contribute a ton in your early years and your workhorse and a bell cow for this team, and you contribute to them winning, and then you don't see the money. You see like number 3 wideouts get paid more money than you. Like I get why it's frustrating to them, but it's the reality. And I don't blame GMs. I mean, it's a copycat league, and when you look at, you know, running backs that have won the Super Bowl, you got to go back to like, Chris, I'm not even joking, like elite running backs. Is it all the way back to like Terrell Davis? Like,
I mean, that's late 90s.
Late 90s, I'm sure. I mean, Marshall Faulk with the Rams in the early 2000s.
I would say
obviously one.
It was like, dead probably going into the mid 2000s, like the 2005s, 2010s.
Certainly by 2010. Since 2010 there has not been Chris, I'm looking at a list right now. 2010, James Stark. 2011,
Yeah.
Ahmad Bradshaw. 2012, Ray Rice, who was only making $2 million. 2013, the leading rusher in the Super Bowl was Percy Harvin for the Seahawks.
Yep.
LeGarrette Blount, C.J. Anderson. LeGarrette Blount 3 times has been a leading rusher in a Super Bowl. Not exactly household names.
Prolific.
Sony Michel, Damian Williams. Last year, Isaiah Pacheco. Like, these aren't your household.
They're not
names.
workhorses. They're not what they used to be when you ran heavily in those, in the 90s and early 2000s. It's not the same game. But it's just the landscape of it. Tony Pollard, Cooper Kupp. I mean, Rush got it casually. Did Pollard
Pollard did get he signed the franchise tender, so he's playing on the franchise tag this year.
Yeah.
He signed it, so he's not holding out or anything like that. He's gonna play on it, and we'll see what happens there. Obviously, he's coming off a unfortunate injury late in last year with the broken leg in the playoff game, right? Yeah, it was against the Niners in the playoffs. So hopefully he'll be good from that. But if he's good to go from that, and a broken leg is far less concerning to me than like ligaments or like an Achilles tear or an ACL tear. Like, those are way harder to come back from than a broken leg. The bone's just going to heal and you'll be ready to go. Like, it's not like
unless you're like rookie of the year and you just get hurt and then you have like the best injury of all time that's going to get you paid or something. Yeah,
this leg could slingshot him to be even faster than he was.
Shot him down the field,
faster than Tyreek Hill. Speaking of Tyreek Hill, did you hear what he said today?
I didn't. I did not.
He said if he goes into when he goes in the Hall of Fame, he's going in as a Dolphin. Which,
oh man,
there's a couple things I'd like
slap
to say
in the
about that.
face.
One, why are you? Why is he throwing? I think he's just jealous. He's mad. He leaves. He thinks, oh, the Chiefs can't win without me, and then he leaves, and they win the very next year, the Super Bowl. They get all this attention. He's a little jealous of all that. But also, someone should tell Tyreek, the NFL doesn't work that way. You don't go into the NFL Hall of Fame with like a team designation like you do the Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Like, there is no team designation in football. It's not like Peyton Manning had to choose between the Colts and the Broncos. He just went into the Hall of Fame. You don't have a team designated to you. So
it's
literally
pointless.
the comment itself is irrelevant.
It doesn't even matter.
Why the dude is hating so hard on the Chiefs. I think it just comes from envy, I would imagine. But I don't know.
Dude just needs more. Doesn't he still have the podcast he's still doing? He's always
well, I'm sure he is, but he probably should. Well, obviously he could be in a little trouble. Did you see like slap some guy like on a boating outing? I think we may have touched on it like a month or two ago. Got into a little scuffle. Did you hear about that, Chris?
A little bit, yeah. So is that? Yeah. I think I heard.
I don't know if that'll have any consequences from the league. It wasn't like a brawl or an all-out fight, but like the guy was trying to press charges, and there's kind of video you can find of it a little bit where you can at least see Tyreek kind of like freaking out and people holding him back. And
oh man. Well, Tyreek living his best life.
Yeah, he's enjoying Miami.
Speaking of,
guess where he wouldn't get in fights with people on boats? In Kansas City.
No, there's not too much water in Kansas City.
Landlocked.
Yeah,
you can go on like go over to the Ozarks, I guess, a little ways away, but
just cruise on over, get into jump in the lake, the Ozarks. Speaking of, we were talking about running backs a little bit earlier, about getting paid and everything else, but running back on my list that I kind of am just itching to draft early on, and I just don't know if I'll be able to avoid it. Like, he'll be on my radar from the beginning, and he's been getting some hype, and I feel like it's rightfully deserved. But Nick Chubb, not only can he bench or squat like 600 pounds, which I don't know why that's necessary, but he could. I mean, he's an insane human being. He just needs to like. I feel like he's gonna. That bar is just gonna break over his back one day. But anyways, Nick Chubb is a guy that I will try to get on my fantasy team if possible. I mean, he finished a running back 5 last year. Could be the best running back in fantasy this year. I mean, he have the quietest 1,500-yard season in NFL history. Like, he just quietly just in Cleveland, where all the drama was happening. You got all the stuff happening with quarterback issues and everything else. Like all of a sudden, he just puts up, just 1,500 yards, no big deal. He's the only running back in NFL history to average 5 yards per carry in his first 5 seasons. Like, that's good production that no one talks about. Second best yards per carry mark behind Jamal Charles for his career at this point. He's explosive. He's next level when it comes to his cutting and getting upfield. The coaches also want to get him passes in the passing game as well, which, I mean, you add not only the production on the ground behind a decent offensive line, but you also add in the fact that he's going to be catching the ball. So PPR leagues, he's going to be blowing up. He's playing for Jim Brown this year, Scotty. He's going to have like 1,000,000 yards rushing, running for Jim Brown as a motivation. But he's already been good. Like, he's the boring guy. I'm telling you, draft the boring guy.
I think Nick Chubb is the best pure runner of the football, probably in the game of football.
He's so good. Like, he's the guy that you put on camera for your kids when they're in Pee Wee football. You probably want to put the video on of him rushing the football. Like, that's what you want.
Yeah, he is a blend of size, speed, power, awareness, all of the traits you're looking for in a running back. Patience, he has. But this comes with a little bit of a but for me, Chris, in the sense of, you talked about his pass catching. I'll believe it when I see it. Like, he hasn't really done that to this. I mean, he's been in the league for 4 years now, 5 years, and really hasn't done that or been asked to do it. I don't know if that changes. You talked about he was running back 5 last year in fantasy football, and he had a career year from yards, attempts, touchdowns. All of those were his best marks of his career, and he was running back 5. Right now, he's getting taken running back 6. So it's not that far off from where that was last year. So I don't know if the upside's there unless if he starts catching the ball. I agree. Like I said, I think taking fantasy out of it, if I could choose a guy to hand the ball off to, it would be him. But I don't know if the upside's there based off of career years and all those categories. He still was running back 5, and now he's getting drafted running back 6. It's not like he's just dropping drastically from that number. So, I don't know. I mean, I love him, obviously, and he's gonna give you consistent numbers. Obviously, Kareem Hunt's out of the picture there.
Yep.
So maybe he gets a few more opportunities in the pass game, like you talked about, and there very well could be. A running back I love that they haven't gotten in the pass game. That this is more of a sleeper. This is further down the list, Chris. Is J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, obviously a brutal injury in 2020, basically sits out all of 2021. Really isn't even ready to go last year. Like, played in a few games, got re-injured, wasn't healthy. He comes back in weeks 14 through 17. So over a course of 4 weeks, Chris, he averaged 8 yards an attempt, 9.62 yards per attempt, 4.92, and 5.47 over the last 4 weeks that he played. Two of those games against a Pittsburgh defense that we know Rec has told us is the greatest defense to ever exist. So he went for 15 carries for $120 against Pittsburgh in one game. Now, he doesn't catch the ball at all, so that's the hindrance there. But he's going to be the lead back in a Baltimore offense that, keep in mind, he's putting up these numbers, and Lamar Jackson's not in the lineup. So you have, they're probably playing the run a little more. The passing game wasn't exactly elite, even with the Pro Bowler, whatever his name was, because he was the last guy who was healthy and could say yes to make the Pro Bowl in the AFC. But so another, off season to actually get fully healthy. I'm very big on and we're going to get into some of this, of a guy that came back from a serious injury last year, maybe didn't look great. You just got to buy your time, and they'll
buy the dip.
Buy the dip, and they'll explode this year. I think J.K. Dobbins is kind of one of those guys. So it's kind of in our other segment. This could apply to our other segment as well, but I like Dobbins.
When we get to sleepers, there's going to be a lot of overlap with a lot of the segments that we've had. But Medic Gibby, on another question, do you think the Titans will be a contender now that they're loaded up? A contender in the AFC is hard to be. Like, right? Like, with the AFC as strong as it is, you still have Tannehill, who you're putting a lot of trust in. I think that there's just too much talent in other rosters for the Titans to be near the. I mean, you got the Dolphins are going to be good. The Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, I mean, you name it. Like, there's
Jags in their own division
Jags.
should be pretty good.
I mean, I think the Jags still run away with that division in the grand scheme of things. They're looking good. So there's a lot to. There's an uphill battle for the Titans, regardless of what they're looking at. I think they have like a couple young quarterbacks behind Tannehill that I don't know how they're going to get in the mix if Tannehill struggles. They're not going to be very good if they're just getting thrown into the mix. Mate, you got Willis, then you're not going to start the young kid that you just drafted.
No, Willis is done there. It's Will Levis if they move on, but they're not going to move on unless Ryan Tannehill's there.
What's up, Nick?
But Ryan Tannehill's like Ryan Tannehill needs to be in the NFC. I'll just put it that way. The AFC is too stacked at quarterback. I love Vrabel as a coach. That defense plays their ass off. Jeffrey Simmons is a monster in the middle of that defense. They add DeAndre Hopkins, which is obviously a nice piece to add, but like, I'm still not sure their weapons are all that elite. We'll see what DeAndre can provide, and you have Treylon Burks, of course, who you took in the first round last year. So you have some options, and Derrick Henry, who every year you're like, dude, this dude must eventually break down. Like, he's had so much wear and tear on his body, and every year he continues to put up numbers. So we'll see when that decline comes, but at this point, I'm not predicting it. It's just going to happen at some point. But the Titans are just when your quarterback is Ryan Tannehill, you just have such an uphill climb. Like, you have to be so much better in other facets of the game than some of these other teams. Like, and I've said it before as a Chiefs fan, like, to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, you have to at least score 27 points.
Well,
like,
and they've made
27.
Yeah,
you're not beating the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Well, and they've made some head scratching moves. I mean, AJ Brown, and then bringing in a guy that's older for a lot of money for Hop and all these. I mean, they've just done some weird things with their roster that I'm just not bought in that they know what they're doing. Cuban and Casey, you could go to Reservoir and use the jet skis. Nothing could go wrong there. Nope.
Nothing goes wrong with jet skis ever.
Jonathan Taylor is the best running back, says Milwaukee's. I mean, he's good, but
Jonathan Taylor had an incredible year 2 years ago.
He's good, but
I don't know. My issue is, like, you're probably starting a rookie quarterback in Indy this year.
Well, and not only that,
concerns of like if that offense is going to be prolific, and most people are going to sell out stopping that run game.
Well, and not only that, but like, I mean, your quarterback likes to rely on his legs and probably will do so quite a bit this season, given the fact that like he's learning under, the NFL, like the new NFL system and like the players around him and everything else. Like, he's going to resort to maybe doing a little bit more running, which I think is going to hurt some value for Taylor as well. But I just think there's a lot of challenge. Like, I'm not taking any wide receivers in Indy this year. Like, I'm terrified to take anybody.
I thought I loved Michael Pittman going into last year, and I took him some leagues, and obviously Matt Ryan wasn't who we thought he was going to be, and then Pittman didn't quite have the year we thought.
No.
But this year, yeah, it's hard to take anybody in Indy. Milwaukee, not fantasy wise, he's just the best running back. I think it's a preference of like, I mean, what are you looking for in your running back? He's certainly in the mix, and I won't argue that if you want him and you say he's the best, I'm not going to argue that. There's obviously Christian McCaffrey's in that mix.
McCaffrey throws for touchdowns. He's going to have more touchdown throws than Trey Lance. We talked about that the other day. When it's all said and said and done.
Del question for Scotty: isn't the OC for Baltimore a passing kind of guy? Even with them as a rival, I like Dobbins too, but I think there's more weapons at wide receiver now from Lamar than ever. Do you see that causing a dent in his production? I mean, at the end of last season when he was putting up 100 yards a game, those were on 15, 13, 12, and 17 carries. So he wasn't exactly getting a ton of carries. He's just prolific with that. The Baltimore team, I mean, they've preached that they're gonna play a little more spread type offense, open it up, let Lamar throw the ball more, get it out of his hands quickly. They preach that's what they're going to do. So yes, they're not going to be, but even in a spread offense, you still, like, people think you don't run the ball. That's not the case. It's just a faster tempo. You spread him out, you tire him out, you get it out of his hands quickly in a lot of scenarios, and don't force him into a ton of reads. Like, you know how I feel about Lamar as a thrower of the football. I'm not intrigued by that option. So they're preaching that they're just going to be this pass everywhere team, but like, if that starts to not work out, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Lamar's strength is his passing. If you're ranking Lamar just on his passing ability as for with starting quarterbacks in the
You're
league,
in trouble.
He's in the bottom 5.
You're in
He's
trouble.
in the bottom 5.
Speaking of quarterbacks, my last one that I'll talk about here is a guy that I feel like you want to. We talked about this. You want a good night's sleep, and drafting a top quarterback, an ace in your hole that you never have to worry about, is like getting a good night's sleep. You never have to worry about it. You know he's going to go out and get you 25 points per game, and that's Jalen Hurts. Like, don't overthink it. Don't go crazy with it. But getting a good quarterback early, like a Jalen Hurts, is going to help you out. He's efficient downfield and in the red zone. Doesn't turn the ball over. Only Mahomes and Tua had more yards per attempt last year. He had one of the best seasons ever. In the last 10 seasons, there are only 3 players who had better seasons, average 25 points per game. That was the 2013 Peyton Manning 55 touchdown MVP season, the 2018 Mahomes 50 touchdown MVP season, and the 2019 Lamar Jackson rushed for 1,200 yards and won MVP. Like, other than that, I mean, Jalen Hurts has been absolutely insane, at least as of last year. He had 154 points as a rusher. Dameon Pierce had 151. Like,
well, you can take comfort knowing that he's gonna get at least 40 yards rushing every game just on QB sneak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally any short yardage, they're like, all right, we'll sneak it. And then they do it like 12 times a game. It's the worst play in football to watch. It's boring, but it's unstoppable.
It's unstoppable.
I thought, and there was talks that they would change the rule on that and adjust it somehow this offseason. They didn't. So the Eagles are gonna just be like, all right, stop us.
Yeah.
Like, all the Eagles have to do is get into like a 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2, and they will get a first down every time by sneaking that ball.
Yeah. And then and not only that, he has 2 of the top wide receivers in the NFL too, to hang his hat on. So I mean, not only that, like, he's going to be a guy you never have to worry about. So Jalen Hurts rounds out the cream of the crop here.
I love Jalen Hurts as a quarterback, but he's certainly benefited by maybe the best surrounding core, like, offense around him. Like, there are no weaknesses. I mean, outside of May, you don't have like a dominant running back. Obviously, they trade for DeAndre Swift. That'll be interesting to watch, amongst other things. Rashad Penny, is that where he's at? I lose track.
Penny, I love Penny, by the way.
But like, that offensive line is incredible. You have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. You have Dallas Goedert at tight end. Like, you have weapon after weapon after weapon, and a great offensive line. And yeah, I mean, he's going to be a monster in fantasy. He's going to be a monster. So he's a very safe pick. Hasn't been injury prone thus far in his career, knock on wood. I think he did miss like 1 or 2 games last year, but overall, through his 2 years of starting, I think, or 3 years or whatever it's been, hasn't been injury prone. He's going to get the yards on the ground. He's probably going to get rushing touchdowns with those sneaks, like I talked about. Like,
hey.
Yeah, well, he definitely will.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So there you go. Let's see. Hanging around, it took 2-3 months. 2-3 from San Diego. Devil Doc talking some baseball in the chat. All right, so there you go. Cream of the crop. Those are guys that you probably need to focus on when it comes to your fantasy football draft. If these guys that we just covered drop anywhere in your range, you might want to consider them because they're going to be very, very good for you this season. So keep an eye on those guys as you guys are preparing more and